So, this is our fourth time recording today. You know, these are the days that cause my hair to turn gray.
And I have seen the gray hair.
I got plenty of it. It's like one of those days that...
I do in my beard.
And I don't see it. Do you
Well,
color your beard?
and my hair. Jordan pointed that out. So that's what wives are for.
You've been around me too much. It's like one of those days where anything that could go wrong will go wrong. But I feel like if these are the things that have went wrong... And
there are people out there that have way...
I was going to say, like, if these are like the worst things that have happened today...
We're all right.
Then we're doing pretty good.
And hopefully it is, because you're traveling tonight.
Yeah, Lord.
Which, if you're watching this episode, it'll be yesterday. So hopefully when people are watching this, you're still alive and well.
I feel like I'm just on edge right now. Because earlier we filmed like the intro 3 times. The light went out. Someone forgot to switch the camera. And then we got a phone call. And then our guest, who was supposed to be joining us, she had travel issues, which none of us can help.
That's a whole nother episode. Like airport, what would we call it? Just issues? Airport issues that... I have a whole story about our mission trip.
Well, we should have Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on here to talk about that, because he should be the one fixing all of that. Anyway, her flights got canceled or rescheduled, then she lost her baggage, and I know how that feels. I lost my baggage going to CPAC conference in Dallas, and
Spirit
lost my gun.
Oh.
Spirit what? Spirit lost yours.
Spirit Airlines. So, short story, but...
no, that's okay, because this is going to be a short episode anyway, so we can drag it out.
We went to Los Angeles last year for a mission trip. We went out there to a church plant, the Abiding Church. Shout out to them. But on our way back, we also did a mystery portion of a trip. So what that means is David Neese, the director for BCM, who took us, he does a mystery. His spiritual gift is administration. It's wild. So we ended up going to Phoenix, the Grand Canyon, Dallas, and Fort Worth, Texas, all in the span of like 4 days, just to explore. And so it was awesome. But then we had to fly from, how we were able to do this is such a cost efficiency was we flew Spirit, which is always cheaper. And I don't have a problem with Spirit. It gets me to and from.
I actually never had a problem with Spirit ever.
Yeah, like typically...
American Airlines is where I have problems.
Okay, see, like we can go down the line. Delta's been my favorite. Ugh. But anyways... we were supposed to be flying from Dallas to Fort Lauderdale, from Fort Lauderdale to Myrtle Beach. Well, we're sitting in the airport in Dallas, and throughout the day, they keep postponing our flight. They're like, nope, you're pushed back. And we're like, we're going to miss our Fort Lauderdale flight. Well, what happens is they decide to cancel our flight, and the next one out of Dallas for us would be like 3 or 4 days. Oh. So, no bueno, but... David, being David, went to the front desk, talked them about it. They got us on our flight to Fort Lauderdale, but then from there is where we needed to figure out what was next. So we fly to Fort Lauderdale. Our flight from Fort Lauderdale is still canceled to Myrtle Beach, but when we get there, can't find our luggage. Good. It's almost midnight at this point. Finally get to it. Mine's busted up. They email back and forth with David like weeks later, and they're like, it's not our problem, it's y'all's. He was able to get me compensated for it. So shout out to David. He'll be on the podcast eventually. But also, me and him, we rented 2 vans, drove 12 hours through the night, and got back to Myrtle Beach at around 1 p.m. the next day. That was me running on caffeine and goodie powder. So
it sounds like
that was the biggest. That was a part of the mission portion of the mission trip. So, mission: get college students home safely.
Did it teach you like some patience and stuff?
Yes, and that's something I don't. You better be careful when you pray for patience, because you see it in traffic. You see it in just your. You see it in recording a podcast.
Yes, for the 4th time.
So at the end of the day, you know. It was a fun trip. It was a story to tell. So here we are. Here we are now.
You live to tell a story.
Yeah.
Glad you made it back.
Yeah, thanks.
So, like I said, this is kind of like our 4th time recording. So it's going to be a little wonky kind of episode, because when we originally shot, we had 2 cameras, one on each of us. We were separated. But the intro that we filmed, I think, was just too good to just get rid of it. So, in a second, we're going to toss to that. And then in the middle of that, we're going to come back to where we are now. Now, if you're just listening to this on like Apple or Spotify, you're probably not going to notice any difference at all. It's the people who are going to be watching that are going to be like, what is happening to this podcast? But just bear with us. So I think we toss now, if that's okay with you, to the original intro that we had, and then we'll come back in a second. Roll it.
What's up, podcast world? Welcome back to the Battle Belongs podcast with Coleton Furlow. I just called him Curtin a second ago. And
this is our second take.
Yeah, PJ Cuba. One way we just want to start off the podcast with, he always asks me, he's like, how should we start the podcast? And so here's my take on that. Here's how we're starting today. Appetizer of choice. What are you going with? Appetizer of choice. None of us can speak today. Mm-hmm. Is fried pickles and ranch with mayonnaise. Okay, he's just saying that because I hate mayonnaise. First of all, pickles are my least favorite thing in the world.
Pickles and peanut butter, by the way. Side note, pickles and peanut butter.
I think pickles would probably surpass mayonnaise as the most disgusting thing in this world for me.
You are so weird.
I know. But also, my appetizer of choice is going to be cheese curds with caramel. And don't even say caramel. I already know you're going to say that.
Caramel.
You can vote in the comments, caramel or caramel, your choice. But there's only one right answer.
The live audience says caramel.
Okay, well, I don't,
Well, finish that sentence.
Well, Jesus says that the gates are narrow. And so I'm on the narrow side of this equation. Mm-hmm. But if you wanted to know where that came from, that's a wild take anyways, but go to Buffalo Wild Wings, order the cheese curds, the appetizer portion of them, because the other one's really small, and ask for a side of caramel. They will know what you're talking about, because it is one of those things. It tastes like a funnel cake or a donut. And you can testify.
I concur. I thought you were absolutely insane when I heard it. Mm-hmm. You got it when we went up to West Virginia for the game, and I was like, what is this man ordering? And the server, he was like, Oh, you know. And I was like, no, what? He's like, just trust me. I trusted him.
Here we are.
It was heaven.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like
we
cheese.
were almost in heaven.
So,
and then Penn State.
Shut up.
Okay. Which we almost lost this past weekend to Bowling Green.
Yeah, that was pretty pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not too sure, who it's more embarrassing for, me or you. West Virginia, losing and then them almost losing to Bowling Green. Does that make us look even worse?
I think it's just one of those things where early on, everybody's told me, they're like, Penn State's done. And I'm like, we still won. I have bad days.
A win counts.
Yeah, a win's a win. We're 2-0. So
well, we are 1-1. Big week, though. We'll get into that in a bit. We have a lot to talk about today, and you haven't been on social media this entire week. Correct. So you've missed a lot. I applaud you. How do you even get through that? Because I wish I could just throw my phone out the window and not get on social media. So I commend you for that. I applaud you, because my whole life and career revolves around this thing.
Well, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I have a ministry, and so dealing with college students, social media is such a massive platform to use to reach college students, and I know that. But it's good, I think, for everybody to take breaks, because social media is so addictive in so many ways, and I think everybody knows that. I think everybody knows, man, I really need to get off of this. Every Sunday when I get that screen time notification, I am convicted. And sometimes that's Safari or text messages, FaceTime, all that. But then I look at Instagram, or for a time there I was looking at TikTok, and I see it endless scrolling happening, and it was not it was not beneficial. And so I throughout the year, I just take little breaks. This week, I'm just taking a week off. I have other people that have access to our ministry accounts, and they handle that, including you. Yeah. And so it's just, it's refreshing more than anything, but it's also how you steward your time. And that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I think it's good.
So unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure of being off of social media this week. I do work in politics. I work in social media, so I had to stay on it. So a lot has happened this week in the world, at home here in America, and I think the highlight of it all was the debate, and that's going to be the main topic now for this podcast episode, is how pathetic that debate was. And I will say that this is going to be a shorter podcast than normal just because of everything that has gone on today. But we are going to talk about the debate. And I don't know how much of the debate you watched, but to me, it was a disaster on both sides, all around. The whole thing was just pathetic. I think it was a circus and a clown show.
Yeah, I thought it was a comedy show. From what I saw, we tuned in after it was on Tuesday, and so we had Baptist Collegiate Ministries that night over at Coastal. And so after the night was over, I know you showed up, and a few students were watching the debate, which is actually like a really good thing. Like, I think just giving yourself a little bit of knowledge about certain things, especially something like the election, even if you don't like politics, like me. I don't like politics, but they are involved in everything, and we talked about that. But and we're gonna do an episode on like church and state and what that looks like. But I was able to tune in for a few minutes to what was going on, and from what I saw though in the short amount of time, it's just so sad to me where our country is. Literally. And what it has come to, because that debate, obviously there's a few things you can point out right off the bat. 3-on-1. The moderators were obviously and evidently fact-checking Trump incorrectly, first of all, but also...
That's the main point, incorrectly.
He would answer a question, and then Kamala, from what the few things that I saw, they would just move on to the next thing. And so it was insane to me. But one thing that I did kind of like think about afterwards, a couple things, but one was this, that like the Democratic Party didn't even vote Kamala in. It was kind of just she kind of fell into place, which, truth be told, I think we knew all along that was going to take place. But
back in, I'd say, January, they started talking about these debates, whether Trump was going to debate or not, because back in 2020, I'm pretty sure Trump like refused to debate at one point because of the bias, and they knew exactly what was going to happen, and just so happened to happen again with ABC. But they were talking about it, and my unpopular opinion, my inexperience, and not that it carries any weight, I said Trump should not debate Joe Biden until after the Democrat convention and the Republican convention, because then you know who the two nominees are going to be. But what did we do? We fell right into their trap, and they set it up perfectly. The Democrat Party knew what they were doing. They set it up perfectly. They wanted, because they knew Joe Biden was not going to be able to hang in there. The man can't even do his daily jobs.
We haven't even seen anything with Joe Biden in recent
Do we even
time.
know if he's still president right now?
Our president.
Correct. So they knew that he was going to be incompetent to serve another 4 years, but they didn't want to oust him publicly in the way that I think they would have, and reprimanded him completely. They wanted him to leave with like this huge legacy and, put him up on a pedestal and all that. So what they did was they offered to debate Trump in June. So what do? We debate Joe Biden in June. And what happens? Joe Biden's incompetency was put on full display for the entire world to see, because Donald Trump, he didn't even like destroy Joe in that debate. Joe destroyed himself. Trump didn't even have to really talk. There was that famous clip where he like looks over and does like a double take because Joe Biden like can't put a sentence together. So because of that, immediately after, basically Joe Biden decides that he's not going to run again. And I knew this was going to happen, that Trump knocked him out of the race. And what happens after that? The Republican convention comes up. Joe Biden leaves after the Republican convention. So after we pick our vice president nominee, J.D. Vance, they decided who Kamala Harris, because at that point they knew it was going to be Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee. They were going to find out who would be best to debate J.D. Vance and go up against him. And they somehow came to the conclusion that it was Tim Walz. Not really sure where that one came from. That was out of left field, no pun intended. I thought it was going to be Josh Shapiro out of PA. If you know anything about politics, he's a very charismatic guy. I think his policies are ludicrous, but that's what it came down to. And we fell right into their trap. And I think that's what the Democrat Party is so ticked off about, like the grassroots, the ordinary Democrat people who aren't the far leftists. They are ticked off that Joe Biden was taken out because that's who they voted for in the primary, and they implemented this nutwad, Kamala Harris. Can I say that? I think nitwit's my new word.
Well, too, like we didn't even talk about the assassination attempt. Like, yeah. I mean, it's not old news.
Right. That happened in July, I think.
Yeah.
Not once did the ABC moderators bring it up, and we'll get back to how they were just completely biased in a second. They didn't bring it up once. Kamala didn't bring it up once, yet she said that he was the threat to democracy, that he's bringing division to this country. And it doesn't make any sense. This is the party of hypocrisy. That is what the Democrat Party stands on. But do you mind if we just talk real quick about how biased those ABC moderators were?
Yeah. I mean,
so I think it was CNN who posted a graphic that Trump lied 33 times and Kamala lied 1+. It was 33+ and 1+ for Kamala. And that's just not the case whatsoever. I don't think Trump lied at all. I think the only thing that could be said that wasn't maybe the fullest truth was whatever's happening in Ohio with these dogs, the dogs and cats.
I didn't. That's what I'm talking about. Like the comedy show that it is. Like, it's mind blowing.
But I think it is actually true. There's like secondhand and firsthand accounts all over, the news of these illegal immigrants eating and ripping the heads off of pets and ducks, just like out and about. But I think that would be the only thing that they could get Trump for. But even then, I don't think he actually lied. But here's what Kamala said. I'll go through them pretty quickly. The Charlottesville comments about what Trump said a few years ago in Charlottesville, where he flat out denounced white supremacy, denounced neo-Nazis at that Charlottesville, Virginia event. And he said later on in that same speech, press conference, whatever it was, there were fine people on both sides, just acknowledging that there are fine people on both sides of the aisle. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but the media went and ran with that, and Kamala used it in the debate, even though it was already fact-checked and proven false by Snopes, which is a left-wing fact-checker. So, number one, lie there. Did ABC moderators do anything about it? No. The next one was the bloodbath comments. Trump made a comment that there would be a bloodbath, referring to the auto industry, because I believe he was in Michigan talking about the auto industry to the auto workers, that if Kamala wins, that there will be a bloodbath for our economy and the auto industry, because Kamala and the Democrat Party are against fossil fuels, gas cars, and they've already tanked our economy, and they have made us energy dependent, where we have to rely on other countries to get our resources and energy, even though we have all the liquid gold that we need under our surface. Did the ABC moderators fact check her on that one? No. The next one was that she said that she was never against fracking. When Trump was saying that she's against fracking, she said, no, I'm not. And I think she even made the statement that she's not against fracking and hasn't been. But in 2019, there was a video of her quote saying, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. I don't think you can get more blatant than that. Next one is she shook her head no, that she didn't fundraise to help get protesters bail money in Minnesota during the 2020 Summer of Love riots that were just peaceful protest as the cities burned behind the CNN reporter. But good thing we have Twitter and X, because we have receipts. Kamala posted, if you're able to, chip in now to the @MN, which is Minnesota Freedom Fund, to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. Doesn't get more blatant than that. Did the fact checker say anything from ABC? No, they did not. The next one was, she said that she would not come after our guns. She and Tim Walz apparently are gun owners. I don't know what type of guns they own. She probably doesn't know how to use one. But she in 2020 said, I support mandatory gun buyback programs. Did ABC fact check that one? Absolutely not. The list goes on and on. ABC blatantly lied, saying that there's no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it is born. But yet the vice president nominee for the Democrat Party, Tim Walz, as governor of Minnesota, removed the requirement to try to save babies born alive after abortion. ABC said that one. And, they try to go after Trump. They try to paint Trump as this radical liar, yet every single thing that Kamala said was false throughout the entire debate. And it's sickening to see that this is what the mainstream media props up as the leading, warrior for America.
That's what, honestly, that's why social media, though we can use it for such a platform to glorify God and use it for good, of course, the opposite of that is the negative side. And so you can take a clip nowadays, take 30 seconds out of a 1 hour conversation and post it and make somebody look like and that's where cancel culture comes from. We've seen it over the years from artists, celebrities, but even pastors, everyday people. And yeah, obviously the left is going to say, no, you are wrong for your opinion on this. And then conservatives are going to say the opposite and look at the facts from the debate. And I think what we can glean from this, and I saw something about this where, and listen, like as Christians, I think we can tell who a Christian is by their fruit. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, I don't know where their hearts are with Jesus, but it doesn't seem like it's close. And so what can we do as believers when it comes to such a thing as this? We could talk about all day what's right from wrong, but we should be praying for not only our nation, but these candidates and for their salvation. Our whole premise is to glorify Christ, and we want other people to know that. And so how could they know it? How can somebody know God without hearing it? And so
not only should we be praying for the candidates, we should be praying for the current administration. Joe Biden himself, he is still the president. As far as we know, don't know where he's at. He's probably on
and listen, everybody says like you've seen it all over. Like, that's not my president. Like on both sides, like Joe Biden, Donald Trump, whoever it might be. Yes, you live in America. Like Joe Biden is your president currently. And so, yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, here's my prayer for Joe Biden. I believe it says in the Bible, may his days be few and someone comes to replace him. That's mine.
My prayer is for salvation. I think,
that too.
Like, I hope Joe gets saved. And you saw the video spiraling as well of him wearing a MAGA hat.
I think if you've watched the video, if you haven't, I encourage you to go watch it because
it's actually kind of sentimental.
It was genuine.
Yeah.
I think it was heartfelt. And that's just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the video, I don't know what kind of event this was and how this Joe even got to this event. It looks like it was in a fire hall. But everyone there is like Trump supporters and they have MAGA hats on. Even the little children have Trump hats on. And Joe's there and he's talking to them. And just mind you, I think if we could really draw a contrast between the sides right now, and I'm not saying this is everyone on both sides, but there is one side that is just has the majority of the people just so hateful. They hate Republicans, they hate conservatives, they hate Christians. I'm not saying that's everyone, but that is the majority on one side.
There are several parties in this, yeah.
Now we do have like the extremists on the right who hate like the left, but I'd say the majority of the people on the right aren't, this radicalized person who wants to go out and just raise heck. But Joe's sitting there, he's standing there talking to these people, and they're just being so cordial with him. They're being very respectful. They're being nice. After all, he is the president. I think you should be respected if you're in a room. And it just reminded me, we remembered September 11th this week, and I have a shirt that says "Make America 9/12 again," and it's by Graham Allen. And what that means is America was never united as much as it was on September 12th, 2001. I don't remember that. I was just a few months old, but I could see the videos, the pictures, the news articles, the news clippings.
I think it was a baseball game too, we saw.
Yeah, where the guy ran around with the flag and George Bush threw out the first pitch of the baseball game. And, it almost makes me emotional, but like that's what America should be.
Yeah.
Everyone was united. And it's sad to think that like it might, I hope not. But it might take another tragedy like that to like fully unite this country because we are so divided right now. And I hope that's not the case, but that's what it was back then. And I just think that was a picture perfect moment of Joe Biden in that fire hall.
Well, obviously too, like in that, we talked about it the other night too. Like, imagine, like we don't know when Christ is returning, and I think we both agree like that is our worldview, like Christianity. Pursuing Jesus, but like imagine if I told you, hey, Christ, like I told you, Jesus is coming back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Would your life look any different today if you knew that information versus us saying Jesus is coming and he's coming quickly? Like if you knew the exact same, would your life look different? I think America would obviously be in a state of worship and they would be in a state of repentance. And it's sad that it takes us like getting to that point to understand that, but it also should make us look in the mirror and say, man, like how can I represent Christ? How can I glorify Jesus today in my interactions, in my daily routine, and all of those things? And so even in such things, like when we look at America right now, whether you're for the left or the right, you have to come to an honest conclusion. Man, there is a God in this world, whether it's you believe it's yourself or it's a false idol, or anything outside,
Power.
or it is Christ and Christ alone, which is the one true God, the ultimate truth in a world of your truth, my truth. I think that if we got to that conclusion and we acted like Christians acted like Christians, we would see change in the world. In a divided world, we would see a united form take place.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the things that, it's obvious that I support Donald Trump. Do I think he's the perfect candidate? Absolutely not. Do I think he's the perfect person? Absolutely not. None of us are. But I think there is one party, one person, and mind you, I don't even consider myself a Republican. I hate, aligning myself with a party that doesn't fully stand for what I believe in. There was a point in time that I was going to officially leave the Republican Party, but I had a nice sit-down conversation with someone who said, well, you can't really change the Republican Party if you're outside of it. So I ended up not leaving, but I just say I'm a Christian conservative. But I think there is one person and one party that is actually going to fight to protect these religious freedoms that we have. And it's not Kamala Harris, and it's not the Democrat Party. And so what would if Donald Trump was sitting here, if Donald Trump was in the room on the podcast, what would you say to him in regards to, fighting for the Christian values that made America great, that America was founded upon, and the principles that we should be living by? Because I think he's close. I think it's like knocking on the door, and if he just surrounds himself with the people that are godly, because he's got a lot of bad advisors, I'd say, that should be knocked out, kicked out, fired. If he surrounds these people, I think we might have a little breakthrough with him. What would you tell him?
Man, that and the thing is, Donald Trump's he's another human being like you and I. So it shouldn't be nerve wracking or anything, but it's also the person that is going to represent our country. So it'd be if I sat down with Pastor B and I were to ask him and think this is me outside on staff here at a church, it would fall in line man, basically how are you going to lead this place? So in Trump's eyes, I would want him to understand, hey, the Bible was written already. You don't have to twist and turn it in however way you want to. Repent and believe the gospel. That sounds so cliche, that sounds so simple, but that's where I would get to, because then what would happen is if belief comes into his heart in that manner, then automatically you would have to, as a Christian, abide by what it says. You don't get to decide what the author has already written. You don't have the pen in hand. You are just a part of the story that he has already written. And so if Trump came to that conclusion, and I were just to say, man, please, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of this country, repent and live a life of repentance and glorify God as you pursue this presidency. And I know that's so that's not a deep dive.
No, that's a great answer. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It just came to mind. But I think I do think that he's so close. And there's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people that I'm friends with, who can't fathom the thought of voting for him because of what they see on TV. And I will tell you that, he might look a little arrogant on TV. He might be a little stubborn and, stern in what he says. But I'll tell you, a lot of it is how the media portrays him. And the media is ran by the left-wing people in this country. And I met him so briefly, and it was just so weird how I met him. It was at Mar-a-Lago at his house. We had a CPAC event, but I was in this tea room with my boss. My boss was going on Newsmax, and we had to set up the camera and everything. And you hear this voice coming in, and you're like, oh my gosh. And he just got done at the golf course, and he walks in, he's on the phone, and he's just acting like, we're just not there. He's just chilling. All the Secret Service came around and surrounded us. There was only 3 of us in the room. And he just walks over to us and he was like, "Hey, how are y'all?" And I was like, "Mr. President?" And he was like, "Who's he on with?" And I said, "He's on War Room with Steve Bannon." He said, "Okay." And he stood there and just watched. Like, he is a very genuine person in person. He's a nice guy. And I don't know, like, what he might try to portray himself as on TV. Maybe it's like a art of war thing, appear strong when you're weak, weak when you're strong type thing.
Yeah.
To give the world a message that America is strong under his leadership. I don't know what it is, but I think a lot of people just really have to get over that. I want someone who's stern. I want someone with a backbone leading our country, because if not, this is what we get. We have a horrible economy because people run all over us. We are taken advantage of by other countries. The world is not at peace right now. Under Donald Trump, he was the first president in the 21st century that we didn't start a new war under. And look where we're at now. We have Israel basically up in flames every single day. We have Russia invading Ukraine and all this stuff. And going back to the debate, I think the thing that got me the most was Kamala Harris kept saying, "I will, I will, I will." And Donald Trump was like, "Well, why haven't you?
Yeah.
You've been in office for 3.5 years."
And I think that is one reality we can, glean from is just the simple facts. Like, okay, you're making promises, but actions speak louder than words, and you've had 4 years to do something. And so, if anything else, even for the Democratic Party, like, change has to take place. And if you don't believe that, I'm sorry, but facts are greater than your feelings.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, like, and somebody said that the other day, like, the Bible doesn't care about your feelings. And I thought, that is the truth. Even for Christians, like, sometimes, like God has given us emotions, and we should use wisdom. We should use our brains that the Lord has given. And again, I can't speak for everybody that doesn't have a Christian worldview, but I think facts still speak loud. And the facts are that this country is in turmoil right now. Kamala has been in office, and even if I was a part of the Democratic Party, I would have, and we've kind of seen that too. There have been red flags. Like, they're like, we don't know even who to vote for anymore.
The amount of people who are leaving the Democrat Party.
Yes, there's a middle ground taking place, and honestly, I hope it's for the best. I hope that's what brings whatever it takes to get us united. In the sense of, like, I don't want to say whatever it takes, because there's a wrong way to do things, but we talked about it a few times, and you've mentioned it. Why, like, out of all the elections, like, why does this one matter, and does it matter more?
Yeah, I think we're at a complete crossroads in our country. Years ago, when it was Reagan, whatever it may be, Bush, the Clintons, I think there wasn't two polarizing ideologies. They were kind of more similar. There was a lot more moderate people, but we are at the extremes right now. It's either we're going to go socialist and communism, or we're going to go back to the republic that we were in democracy. And I think each person and each party and each platform represents each one of those. Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party, they want you to be dependent on the government. They don't want you to be an individual person. They want to take away your liberties, your freedoms. She can say all that she wants about the Second Amendment and not coming after her guns, but she will come after the guns. And a lot of people just don't understand, like, why we're so hung up about guns. But I forget where I was reading this, but there was a quote saying if we don't have the ability to arm ourselves and protect ourselves from the government, then all of our freedoms are at risk of being stripped away. And that's kind of like what the Second Amendment was created for. But we are completely at a crossroads. We have children who are being indoctrinated in the schools. They are being taught this gender ideology as early as pre-K and kindergarten, that you can be whatever gender you want, that you can grow up and by the age of 12 years old get surgery, gender reconstruction surgery. I think it's an evil, wicked ideology, and if we go down that route, I don't think America will ever be the same again. Do I think Trump will save America? Trump can't save America. I think only God can save America. And I think that God is using Donald Trump in a way to expose everything that has happened. And by that, I mean, there's so much bureaucracy in this country. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of federal employees. What a lot of people don't understand is that you're not voting for just one person or the other. You're voting for an entire government. And he's exposed what we call the swamp, draining the swamp. All of these bureaucrats who are just power hungry, money hungry fools is what I think they are. Whether they're in Washington, D.C. or in your state capitals, they only care about themselves and they care about power. They don't care about the common person. I had someone ask me today, is Donald Trump the person for the middle class and the upper class, and is Kamala Harris for the lower class? And basically the other question was, will the lower class benefit for either candidate? And the answer is no. There is one party that cares about the billionaires and cares about power, cares about money, and cares about themselves, and it's the Democrat Party. And the way I can back that up is look at Hollywood. And we'll get into this major endorsement here in a second. But if the middle class and the lower class and just the common person was going to benefit from the Democrat Party, and Donald Trump is all about the billionaires and, the elite status, why is Hollywood voting and endorsing Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party every single election? It's because that's who she represents. That's who the Democrat Party supports. And if you go down that route, the poor will stay poor and the middle class will just be getting by every single time. So to go back to your question, we're at a crossroads, and it's either anarchy, communism, socialism, or freedom. That's your option.
Well, speaking of Hollywood too, obviously we're bringing that up because immediately after the election, we saw Taylor Swift was that person that posted and said, "I'm endorsing Kamala Harris and whatnot." And I deleted Instagram and Facebook, but I still have my Twitter because usually I just use that for news anyway. Mm-hmm. But I saw that, and I saw where she turned off the comments for it and all that. It was basically just to say, like, hey, I'm voting for Kamala. And it's sad to me because I fear that we will base, especially our generation, we will base this, who we vote for, on our celebrity crush or the person that we are influenced by. Like, that's what we're going to base this vote on is the fact that these people voted for her or these people voted for him, and that's the reason I'm going to vote.
Exactly, and that's what I'm talking about. Like the billionaires and the Hollywood celebrities, they vote that way because they know that they're going to be benefited. So why is the common person, the middle class and the lower class, follow that lead? They're not there to help you. And I saw this on Facebook. Someone posted this. They said, Taylor Swift is a billionaire. She's not the grocery store having to decide whether to feed her family or pay her mortgage. While she's flying her private jets, you're struggling to gas up your car and get to work. It's no surprise she's okay with 4 more years of this. And that's what it boils down to. These people, these celebrities, these Hollywood maniacs don't understand what it's like to just be a common person. They don't know what the real world is like for the majority of Americans, not even just Americans anymore, just the majority of the common folk around the entire world. They'll never understand it, and I don't think any of us should be blindly following based off of what a celebrity says.
Yeah, and I don't want to bash anybody. What you're entertained by, and even like the celebrities themselves, like they have just as much freedom as we do to live in America, and they have the right to vote. My fear is this: that especially as Christians, like I don't read the Bible, and I don't see Abraham, Paul, Peter, all these heroes of the faith, and I think I want to be more like them. Mm-hmm. No, the common theme is all of them running that race. They're actually in the Hall of Faith, it says in the book of Hebrews, but we're all chasing the one thing, and that's Christ. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 talks about this race that we're running, and in the finish line is Christ himself. But we have to endure. We have to run after him. And there's a song, I want to be more like Jesus. There are things that we can glean from, from Paul or from these people that we look up to, and that could include celebrities. But if they're not basing their thing on core values, if they're basically what I'm boiling down to is don't follow a man. Everybody has their own thought process there, but follow Christ and allow that to dictate everything that you do, including how you vote this coming year.
Did you see that TikTok trend like a couple weeks ago where you do the trust fall, and then the person like actually lets them fall, and then they walk over to the camera and they're like, "Don't trust in man, trust in God," or something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's how simple it has to be. We cannot trust we can't trust that Donald Trump is going to fix everything. He's not.
No, absolutely not.
You have to trust that God's going to use imperfect people for his perfect plan. And I don't think Kamala Harris is that person.
I was also asked too, though, and I think you saw it in the 2016 election when they announced Donald Trump as the next president. That video went viral with that lady screaming, "No!"
Yeah.
Like she was, and
Reminds me of My Choice.
Yeah. Yes. Which you're famous for, but basically, like somebody asked me the other day, like, well, if Kamala Harris gets voted in, like, how are you gonna do you think that's still in God's plan? Yeah, absolutely. Nobody in this world can mess up God's plan,
right?
And so, in that, we still trust in that firm foundation that we're grounded in, which is also in Hebrews, that Christ remains the same when your world is constantly spinning and changing. Emotions are hot, up and down, and all and everything around. Like that's like one of those things we have to be grounded in something. And so, my faith does not change. Jesus still remains the same. Even if we got to a point where it was much like the Roman church, we begin to get persecuted again, or the churches out of this country right now that are dying for their faith. If we got to that point, my faith in Jesus will not change because he is the firm foundation that this country needs. And so make America godly again, not just great.
Stay tuned for that. I think that's an amazing point because there was a point in time where when I was just first getting into politics, I was like freaking out. Like it was the 2020 election. I was like, oh my gosh, if Joe Biden wins, we're doomed, yada, yada, yada. But then I had to come to the conclusion, like, my faith does not rely on a person. My faith does not rely on the president. And that brings me so much peace, knowing no matter what happens, I know where I'm going.
I can face tomorrow.
Right. I know where I'm going. If this country, we go to war, the government starts coming after us, like you said, being persecuted, I know where I'm going. So by that means I am content in that. But
we have to walk by faith, not by sight.
Right. But that doesn't mean that we should just sit back.
We still have a duty.
Right.
There's a huge debate out there on works, faith-based or works along with faith. Are we saved by faith alone, or is it by faith and works? Well, you're saved by faith alone in Jesus Christ. Bible's clear. You can debate me all day on that, but I'm standing firm on it. And then because of that faith that we have in Christ, we then have a duty to fulfill. And that's how we are able to tell Christians by their fruit, because I've been justified by faith alone, meaning I could not do anything in it to inherit or to earn it. Now, because of that faith that is unearned, I'm going to do something with it, meaning I'm going to fulfill the Great Commission. I'm going to feed the homeless. I'm going to take care of the poor. Like, there are things that we do, and it's not just because I want to be a good person in this world. It's because Christ paid the price for me, and he set the example, and so now I'm following that. So, yeah.
You brought up that point of like the feeding the poor, and it just made me think of something. And I cannot wait for this episode when we do it. Just breaking down the different camps of, what Christians are voting which way and why they should be voting whatever way, and then breaking down all the issues. But I think there's a lot of people who say that they're Christians and they vote Democrat because they have this socialist woke Jesus mindset. And what I mean by that is, the Bible obviously talks about how that we should care for the needy and all that. But we also do it at free will. Jesus did it at free will. He wasn't mandated by the government to do it. And when you go down the road of socialism and what the Democrat Party stands for, you are mandated to do these things. You're going to be paying more taxes to give to the poor, but also it's going to be benefiting the rich more and the elite status. So yes, as Christians, we should be helping those in need. And the majority of the charities in this country are Christian ran. And that's just out of free will. That is like the Christians following the gospel and following.
Well, I think it's mandated somewhere, and the mandate comes from the Bible. It
Right.
doesn't come from somebody telling
Government.
you. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's like the whole mindset that they have. And, they'll get you good on that when they start talking about, well, we need to do this, this, and this for the poverty and the poor and all that.
Then do it.
Their platform can be amazing at times. You hear this is one of the things that I really care about the most is a lot of these Democrat politicians will go into these inner cities, big minority ran communities like Atlanta, DC, New York City, and they'll say, we're going to do this, this, and this for you. We're going to, bring you out of poverty, all this stuff. Yet, and then they vote for them. The people there will vote for the Democrat, and they have for the past 50 plus years, but their schools still suck. The infrastructure's horrible. They're still in poverty. There's still homeless people running rampant everywhere. They lie and lie and lie. It's false promises. But they could have an amazing platform if they just stuck to what they do.
Yeah, and it's not. Listen, it's not our job to. I will never try to force anything when it comes to What I mean by this is I don't want to tear down one party to make the other look good. I think realistically, what every person needs to do is look at the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what this country's been like for the last 4 years. Do you want a repeat of that? If not, then you know what you need to do.
Right.
Plain and simple. If that was the greatest wisdom that you can get for this next election, pray fervently, but also just look at the facts,
right,
and see them for yourself, and then vote, because it is your right to vote, and I think you should.
Yeah, I don't think it's a hard choice at this point if you're, following the Bible and, what we should be standing on as a Christian. So any last thoughts about the debate? Anything going forward as we get closer to the election? We're going to be having more political Christian talk as we get closer to it, and I can't wait for those to come out. But any last thoughts?
Pray for the candidates at hand. Pray for their salvation. Pray for the direction that this country is going. But also just pray for the peace of mind that God offers to us, and let that be your driving force, because it's easy to let something like this dictate how you feel emotionally, how you feel physically. It can affect you in the wrong ways, and so ground yourself in the faith. If you don't already, repent and believe the gospel. It is the most freeing thing that you can do. And you can actually message our page on any of our platforms, and we'd be happy to walk you through what that looks like.
Come on now. I think you'll have to also pray for your enemies at this point, because we're a nation so divided.
That's biblical.
Pray for your enemies. Like I said, that 9/12 United type thing mindset, I think, is what we should live out every single day. So seeing that video of Joe Biden, even though I think he's a little crazy, it was very wholesome. So what was I going to say? I just went brain fart.
It's one of those times. You're about to drive 8 hours. 8 hours? 8 hours? 12 hours? 12 hours, technically. 8 hours. If you include Pittsburgh. You're stopping in West Virginia, correct?
No, we're going up Saturday to Pittsburgh.
But you're driving to West Virginia tonight, Maryland.
To Maryland tonight.
Yes.
And then 2 hours to Pittsburgh. But then I'm driving.
Is there a good sports program in Maryland, college-wise?
No.
I was just curious.
You got UMD and they suck.
Yeah, they need a bigger stadium.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. No, they don't, because they can't even fill it. When West Virginia was there, we took over. What I was going to say was, I think all these things that happened today happened for the good, because I think we had a way better discussion now about the debate and everything than we would and did earlier that we taped.
That's fair.
Yeah.
God works all things out for his good, not ours.
Okay, so now we're going to switch back to the old taping, because it is the most important part of the entire podcast.
I wouldn't say it's the most important, but it's the most fun.
That's our line.
It's the most fun for us.
The most important part is our line, though. Anyway.
Really? So it's about us.
It's not about us. It's about
You heard it here first, folks.
All right, college football picks. Roll it.
What's our record? I think what am I like 1 game up or something?
Okay, so we were. Yeah, I was.
We were 3-2 last week. 3-2 each. You won the Iowa State game.
I was.
And the South Carolina Kentucky game. South
Hold
Carolina, they shocked me last week.
Go Cox.
Iowa State's always like, yo.
Okay, so as of last week, you were 5-4. I was 4-5, but now I am 7-7, and you are 8-6.
Jeez.
So you still have one up on me.
It's pretty pathetic.
But I think
We're
this
like
week,
around the 500.
this week I'm a little scared. Number
Yeah.
one, because it's brawl week.
Pitt, West
This
Virginia.
week we brawl. But first, before we even get to that, that's got to be our last one. That's the big one. Friday night. So if you're listening to this today, when it releases Friday night, tonight we have number 20 Arizona at number 14 Kansas State.
Kansas State.
This is a Big 12 game.
Arizona, everybody's kind of sleeping on them. They still have their quarterback, but they did have a lot of transfers in the portal this past year. So I'm going with Kansas State. They had a pretty good game against Tulane, which I don't know how good Tulane is either, but I'll stick with K-State. They're at home.
Yeah, I don't really know much about Arizona other than they went to the Big 12 championship last year, right? Against Oklahoma, I think, maybe. No, because they weren't even in the Big 12
Nope,
championship.
they were in the pack.
I think I
more.
had them.
RIP.
I don't know. I'm going Kansas State. West Virginia plays them at home. I think we should all be going to Arizona. Just saying. October 28th, Hollow Weekend. Raina.
Yeah, nobody's going to that game with you.
I need better friends. Okay, so we both got Kansas State. Next one, we got number 24, Boston College. They're ranked. Shocker.
About to not be.
They are at number 6, Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri is going to win that game. I think Boston College does have a decent team this season, but I also think Missouri is one of those teams that they kind of have something in the back of their mind, like they're in the SEC.
It just means more.
Yeah, they got energy, man. So and they're at home, right?
At Missouri.
Yeah, so I'm going Missouri.
So we both have two of the same. This is not good. I also have Missouri. Okay, next one. This is called, I think that, I don't know what this rivalry is called, but it's number 9 Oregon at unranked Oregon State.
Civil War.
That's what it is?
Yeah. It's
I
at
got
Oregon State, and Oregon has struggled this season.
But Oregon State has as well. Did you see who they played like last week?
Yeah, it was like 21-0. Who'd they play? And nobody. Portland State.
I think that was their first game. Oregon State Beavers.
Well,
let's look.
Beside the point, I'm going Oregon here. I think Dylan Gabriel is just waiting to pop off. So I'm on that bandwagon still. I think he's a Heisman candidate. I just hope that offense starts to kind of pick it up. The defense has never been there for Oregon. So,
isn't that who you have winning the Big Ten? Oregon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, I've changed my opinion, but
is it Ohio State?
it is.
Rain is celebrating back
Right
there.
now, it's in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State versus the rest of the conference. So,
but the Oregon State games that I was talking about, they only beat Idaho State 38-15.
but I also don't think you can base a team on like how many points they beat certain teams. But like whoever shows up that week is
It's like an FCS team.
I know. I just think like we saw it a couple years ago. It's been years, but Virginia Tech. I know you love them. They started off the year. They lost to James Madison when they were still an FCS team, and they lost to Boise State, who was a top 5 team at the time. 0-2 start, finished the year and won the ACC. Went on to win the Orange Bowl that year. So 12 straight wins for them. So I'm just saying anything's possible. Virginia Tech years back beat Ohio State. Ohio State went on to win every other game that year and the national championship. So just
I don't know why I'm arguing it because I have Oregon as well. But I would like to see Oregon State win, but I just don't think so.
Yeah.
We got College Game Day in Columbia, South Carolina. We have number 16 LSU, which I'm not really sure why this is College Game Day. Look, I love the game called the Backyard Brawl.
Okay.
Arizona, Kansas State.
We're hoping West Virginia and Pitt make a bowl game this year.
Shut up. Number 16 LSU at unranked South Carolina. South Carolina dominated, murdered, destroyed.
I know for
Kentucky
a fact my
last
friends are going to hate me for this because usually when I pick their team, they lose. But I'm going Gamecocks.
It's about time.
LSU's gonna win, I think. But I'm
What?
taking USC.
What kind of pick
LSU's
is
the safe.
that?
LSU's the safe pick, but I think USC. Shane Beamer just brings Beamer ball is a real thing.
Beamer boys.
I'm hoping it shows up this Saturday. It's supposed to be rainy. I think South Carolina may take advantage of that, but LSU's just been sloppy this year. So
I don't like LSU.
I don't
the
really care for
Gamecocks.
Brian Kelly, but
What was I going to say on the note of South Carolina? Anytime that college game day is at one of my schools that I like, they lose. West Virginia has hosted college game day 3 times. We've lost all 3.
oof.
2 years ago, college game day was at Pitt. When we played at Pitt, we lost. So I never have a good record with college game day.
Maybe you should go with LSU. Maybe you should take LSU.
I know. Every time I pick my teams,
Who are you picking?
I'm picking South Carolina.
That was my Gamecock.
Lord, blew my eardrum out. But as soon as South Carolina beat Kentucky last week, I bought tickets to the
Oh my goodness.
Ole Miss South Carolina game. They were only $50. Granted, they are up top, but if they beat LSU next week, I think they got Wofford, maybe South Carolina. They got some
Could
easy
potentially start the season 4-0.
Yeah, so then they play Ole Miss next, and I know that even if I don't go, tickets are going to be like
Ole Miss is going to win
150.
that game,
So
so we'll get to that when that week comes.
So anyway, I can just resell them for
All right, let's get to the game that nobody really cares about.
the most important game this week. I leave tonight, actually yesterday, if you're watching it on Friday, to head up to, I can't say the word I would like to call it, Pittsburgh, for the backyard brawl, West Virginia at Pitt. Everyone knows I despise not only Pennsylvania as a whole, I despise Pittsburgh. And as a
Shout out.
Christian, I don't hate anyone or anything except Pitt. I hate Pitt. I hate everything about Pitt.
It's got to be a sin.
It's the 11th
I
commandment.
dislike.
11th commandment is
Now you're just
thou
adding-
shalt not. Thou shalt
Now you're
not be a
just
Pitt fan.
adding to scripture, which is unbiblical.
Thou
So
shalt not be a Pitt
that's
fan.
why I should say Pitt's going to win. No,
Ugh.
I really should, but I do think West Virginia does win the football game.
I hope so.
So our picks are the same this week.
I hope so. Pops is going up with me, but he refuses to go to the game. I think you should call him and convince him.
The best place to watch a football game is from your own couch.
No, it's not. You need to be in the atmosphere. When Sweet Caroline comes on between the 3rd and 4th quarter at Pitt, it is just a beautiful sound. Pitt has their own version. West Virginia has their own version.
Yeah, they're neither one are Christ-like.
One says, "Let's go, Pitt." Yeah, that's definitely not Christ-like because Pitt is far from being a Christian place.
Well, at the end of the day,
I am filming there. We're going to do some Man on the Street, me and my family. By
who's
me and my
helping out?
family, I mean my cousins are going to film and I'm going to be holding the mic.
cool.
I don't know what we're going to talk about. Probably why does Pitt suck?
You're gonna ask Pitt fans that?
Yeah, why do you suck? Why do you suck? I might not come back alive.
Yeah.
I do have my carry permit, so I'll be carrying just in case someone tries to attack me.
It's just
fine.
football, people. It's just football.
But I'm not going to be talking about football.
You're gonna be talking about politics.
Yeah. Like, are you voting Donald? Or are you voting Kamala? It's
Are we
PA.
allowed? We're allowed to ask that, right? Like 2 people. Like I thought there
Yeah.
was this like sworn ritual that you don't tell people who you vote for.
Have you met the world that we live in 2024? We
True.
wear it on our hats, shirts, and bios.
That's true.
I think you can't ask what their medical records are. That's called HIPAA violation.
HIPAA.
HIPAA.
Well-
Hippopotamus.
Okay. Well, I think that's it.
That is it.
Yeah.
Will I come back next week? Find out.
TBD.
Stay tuned to find out. I'll be inserting some of the footage next week in
Good deal.
our podcast. I'll do a whole vlog
Yeah.
on it.
Can't wait.
You tired?
Little bit.
Someone's got to go night. All right, that wraps it up for episode what are we at? 4?
4?
Time
wanna
is
say
flying.
4.
We've been doing this for a month now.
Wow.
Crazy. That wraps up episode 4 of the Battle Belongs podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Battle Belongs Podcast on Instagram, at Battle Belongs on X, at Battle Belongs Podcast on TikTok. I wish I could have done Battle Belongs Podcast on X, but it was too many characters, so I had to settle. I'm waiting for Mr. Phil Wickham to sue me. I didn't bring up Phil Wickham at all last week or this week until now.
You just did.
Anyway, take care. God bless. See you next time.